So I basically put out a draft guide every year, and it's like in 3 parts. Part 1 is just read
Part
upside
one is
wins.
the wide receivers. Part two is the wide receivers.
Part 1 is read upside wins championships from 2021 or whenever I put that out. Part 2 is anatomy of a league winner that's coming out next week. It's basically just like a 300 level college course on how to be a fantasy football genius. And then part 3 is my guys or my draft plan, which is just gives you all the answers for all the people who don't want to read. That will be out probably at the end of this month. So be on the lookout for all that.
Is Nico Collins your cover boy?
Probably not. Probably not.
I'll put in the request for that. That'll be
is Justin Ross your cover boy?
That makes sense.
Kadarius could be. Kadarius
Scott,
could be. Waller could be.
I would like to get a percentage chance from you that Justin Ross is active in week 1 of the 2023 NFL season.
Active? I'd put it at 25%. 25%.
Okay, that sounds about right to me.
Yeah. Okay. So the league-winning Justin Ross is coming towards the end of the year when everyone else goes
the percentage
down.
chance that if he's active week 1, he outscores Sky Moore is 80%.
I mean, that's probably not as crazy as it sounds, just in the sense that like there's only going to be so many wide receivers active, and if Justin Ross is active, he doesn't play special teams, so he's probably playing a role. So like I kind of can see where you're going, but I'll take the under on that.
So the cover boy of Upside Wins Championships was Antonio Brown, who was like retired and probably suspended all year anyway, and then he came back and he had 3 straight 100-yard games in the playoff weeks, and it's sort of like that thing where it's like. There's a 75% chance like he doesn't play an entire game this year. And even if he does play a game, like he's probably washed after all these injuries, but just, there's also like a 15% chance. Like this was a guy that Mel Kiper and like more like smarter draft analysts were saying, like he is Larry Fitzgerald 2.0.
Right.
And now he has Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback. And so just in a tournament format, like I'll take him in the final round every single time, even though Chris never lets me. One at every 10 drafts.
I do understand that Tom is desperately trying to end this show, but I get the chance to talk to Scott live.
He's not allowed to have a life. I thought we'd been over this.
Yeah, I've signed my life away to Scott. You guys,
I have a question for you, Scott. So I think like one thing, like as much as we disagree on some certain players, like one thing we've always very much agreed on, and like going back to my first article in fantasy football on the Pareto distribution.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah. Great piece.
Was like, we've always very much agreed on that exact thing you just laid out, like impact of outcome greater than sign likelihood of outcome. And my question is like, do you think we're approaching the breaking point on that as a community where like, I think it was a very useful heuristic 2-3 years ago to be like, is there a player who has a greater impact of outcome than likelihood of outcome because they're either a rookie or they're injured or they're suspended or they're under criminal investigation or like any one of these negative externalities that like would cause someone to be depressed in their price outside of their football ability or their projection. And I think like if your answer was just always to click yes and click draft on that player archetype, like across the board, I just think you're always winning on that 3 years ago. And like, now we live in like the Trey Lance era where it was like he was a round 1-2 startup pick before ever playing an NFL game. And like we live in the Anthony Richardson era where he's like the 102 of rookie drafts. And if you ask anybody why they like Anthony Richardson, they're like, on the off chance he's good, this guy will score a lot of fantasy points. Like, do you think that it still applies where we can derive the same edge or even an edge from just like always betting on these players with the more impactful tail, or do you think that we actually have to be right a lot more in 2023 fantasy football?
No, I think there's still like a ton of value in that. Like just last year, my highest owned player was Justin Fields. And I told everyone that he was going to be my highest owned player. And I got mocked because like, dude, he stinks. He was horrible last year. Had a ton of Ramondre, Kenneth Walker, I don't know, some other guys. Deshaun Watson was like free in drafts. Like that did not hit. He sucked ass, but like he shouldn't have been free in drafts. And like the same thing this year, like unironically think Darren Waller and Kadarius Toney are 2 guys among several who I think can absolutely break leagues.
Where do you think Toney's ADP would have been 2 years ago? Because I think it would have been like round 12, round 13. Like, because like this is the guy where like, because like I think Toney is like egregiously priced, but I'm still taking him. Like simple like rule of how I play fantasy football is I will never have less than 8% of a guy like Kadarius Toney. So I'm still drafting him, but I also think his price is insane. Like I think that in the majority of circumstances, he's a stone zero for your 7th round pick or your 6th round pick. But I'll still draft him. But like if he was going in like in that like Cortland Sutton-y range, like where we got Bateman today, like I would have 45% Kadarius Toney. Like it's such a stark difference where the
so you do projections, right? Like you are seriously underrating some people on the Chiefs, guaranteed. Like the Chiefs are going to finish top 2 in passing yards per game this year. You're not on Kelsey. I didn't make this argument when we were having it before, but he absolutely has league-wrecking upside that no other tight end has. He finished first in VORP last year. He was basically wide receiver 5 and just spanked every other tight end, even Hawkinson, who had a great year. Brett Veach, who is like honestly an honest GM, when he traded away Alex Smith and then was interviewed 3 weeks into training camp. And he was like, you don't understand. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback I've ever watched play football. He is going to be breaking records this year. And then he had one of the best sophomore campaigns ever. This year, what he said is Kadarius Toney is definitely our wide receiver 1. We think he's massively underrated. We think he can do it all. He was a PPR cheat code slot guy who didn't see a lot of deep targets, but we think he has that in his game. And so it's not just like the small sample route thing to me, although there's that and the tape and a bunch of other stuff, but there is a massive opportunity there just catching passes from Patrick Mahomes. Has to be to someone. And like you could maybe they spread the ball around a ton, but if they do, it's still then Kelsey's breaks leagues at a bare minimum. And both of them can break leagues the way Tyreek and Kelsey did for years.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, I definitely want to be like overweight Chiefs receivers. Like this is kind of like we talked. It's funny because it's the exact opposite offense, but like the way we talked about it with Atlanta, where I was like, that was a really unlikely result last year. We shouldn't bet on unlikely results to happen 2 years in a row just because we saw it. The idea that Chiefs receiver basically went over as a strategy in 2022 was extraordinarily unlikely. Like, and it required a specific set of circumstances. It required
Dusty ass JJSS,
Travis
Sky
Kelce
being
to have
a bust.
like the best season of a tight end, like one of the best tight end seasons ever at 33. It required the most productive Chiefs wide receiver to be the first one drafted, but to also not be that productive, right? Because like if Hardman had the Juju season, it's a better season, right? Coming at his cost. It requires like Sky and MVS to like basically stone zero. And then Hardman has like he was a good pick at cost, but like whatever. He was Mecole Hardman. It wasn't like you were winning your league because of him. Like it was just, and then it required a team to decide to give the privilege of running a route on Patrick Mahomes' team to Justin Watson way too many fucking times. Like that was a privilege that was bestowed on him that he decided to not do anything with. That's unlikely to happen again, right? Someone is probably going to hit. I think MVS is like a good best ball pick, and then I think he'll return positive value on his ADP, but it's not going to be him. Like we know who MVS is, right? Like he's a small win player. So I do agree. Like the chances that Sky, Rice, Toney doesn't produce a winner is so low. Like I think one of those guys is probably a big winner, or sure, your boy Justin Ross. Any of those 4 players produces 0 winners. I mean, it can even produce 2 winners, right? God forbid, Travis Kelce looks 34. So it's definitely interesting to me. I'm going to be like with the field on Rice is like solely a take if like, I don't believe in this player in the slightest. I think he is total but like he's playing with like the Chiefs and he's a rookie. So I guess I'll draft 8 to 10% like in stacks. Cause why not? Sky, like I'm still just going to martingale him and I'm going to draft 25%, and Toney, I'll take my 8% because I just think Sky and Toney have a pretty similar projection, but Sky's way cheaper and has like a way lower opportunity cost. But I think Toney's upside is through the roof.
Awesome. So just real quick on Justin Ross too, is like taking a 0 in your final round pick in this format is nothing. Is like absolutely nothing. And like I said, Nico Collins basically gave you the exact same thing as Justin Ross last year. 0 startable weeks, maybe 1 startable week where he outscored the next closest guy by 3 points. And then with Kadarius, I actually think there's a floor there, especially in this best ball format. Did you know that over the last 2 seasons, Patrick Mahomes averages 13 shovel pass touchdowns per season. And it's like, who does that go to?
If Kadarius Toney is healthy, his floor is Mecole Hardman of the last couple years.
Above and beyond, because he's definitely more talented than Mecole Hardman. Definitely.
He ran like 3 routes to the Super Bowl, right? Like, this is the same guy.
He scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl, but yeah.
Right. Like, no, but I agree. Like, his range of outcomes, like, if healthy, which is like a massive qualifier because like he's never healthy. But if healthy, yeah, like he has that gadget roll on lock. He's at least going to run 10 jet sweeps and he's going to do his little motions and they're going to give him his bubble screens. Like that's a bare minimum. And he can pay off a 12th round best ball pick on that. And then if he actually gets used down the field, then yeah, I mean, he could be a round 2 pick next year.
But he's also a playmaker in a way that Mecole Hardman wasn't. Mecole Hardman was just a guy who caught targets from Patrick Mahomes while Tyreek Hill and Kelsey were getting open at will. Like, you get the ball to Kadarius Toney, he is going to make yards on his own. He's going to score touchdowns, like improbable 50-yard touchdowns, like on his own. That's absolutely going to happen. So like, I think worst case scenario is like 25% better than Mecole Hardman's best ever season.
For the record, I'm way above market on Toney in Dynasty, and I'm going to be insanely like every single main event team that I draft this year, I want Kadarius Toney on it. I just think I think half PPR best ball is like the worst format for him in the sense that,
I mean, tournament style is like the key thing for me.
Yeah, I guess my thing is like if I burn a 7th round pick in the main event, it's like so survivable. Like he's probably the 4th wide receiver that I take, and then I just never use him, and then I just put somebody else into that lineup slot, and you can totally burn a 7th round pick and get away with it. Best ball this year, like especially on Underdog, man, the wide receivers are so overpriced, right? And I say overpriced in terms of per projection. I think like you can make a scarcity-based case for the wide receiver prices being efficient, but the point being, like the opportunity cost of wide receiver, like once you're past round 7, you won't like the wide receivers you see for the rest of the draft. So if you burn one of those first 3 or 4 picks, a wide receiver on Toney, and he airballs you, like I think you're facing a really uphill climb in a way that you aren't in a managed format. So to me, like I'm very in on him in Dynasty. And then like on FFPC, like I said, like it's literally going to be like a mandatory, like I want my teams to come preloaded with honestly Kadarius and Sky. Like I just want to take 2 of those, Kadarius, Sky, and Rice, like every FFPC draft, and just hope that I get the winner on every one. But yeah, I don't know. Best ball, it struggles. Like
we also have a lot of Mahomes, which makes it easier. And I know you do too.
I do a little. I have not been taking as much Mahomes as Allen and Hurts, just because I always want to take Pollard in round 2, and then usually it's Allen and Hurts that fall to me in the 3rd. But I'm going to force it with Mahomes a little bit as we get to the end of draft season. I definitely want to be 10+% on each of those top 3 quarterbacks.
You need it just for me. You need to make one Mahomes Kelsey team.
Yeah, I think I do. Like I don't actually have 0 Kelsey. I was like trying to give the viewers some fun off the top. I have like 4% Kelsey teams, and I think I have Mahomes on every one of them.
Mm-hmm. Do we want to let Thomas actually have a way? I don't know. I don't
Why
know
is it me? I don't. Hey, look, I just want. I'm just gonna say it one time for everyone in the back. Okay, if you guys wanted more from this podcast, and these guys keep saying that Tom's trying to go and do stuff, I have no life. Okay, I'm the host with the most time on his hands for a reason. This is all I do. I live right to make sure Scott Barrett has enough content out on YouTube. That's my job. You want to know? Hey, what does Tom actually do at Fantasy Points? It's making sure Scott has enough content out for himself on YouTube. That's what I do.
Sorry, Thomas.
More,
I was tuning out again. All I heard was mom yelling at the kids saying we can't have fun anymore and it's time to go to bed. So if you wanted to hear more between me and Jacob and are disappointed, you know who to blame.
Yeah, thanks, we'll make sure that we have we got to get Scott on the full tilt soon too, and then we'll continue this.
I don't think I didn't give my rookie takes. I'm sure I got some spicy ones for you.
No, we didn't have you on rookie, so we'll have you on before the season 100%.
I was going to say that tomorrow night you can catch Jacob and I on the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast. And Scott, if you ever want to take a Friday, you know where to be. You can find that over at Full Tilt FFB. Anything else, gentlemen, I will not be to blame for hitting the end button. That's a no. We're out.